All right, I told you guys that by Saturday night I'll have everything done, and here we are on a Saturday night talking about arrays. I can't think of a better way to spend my weekend. But here we go. An array is basically a data structure that can hold more than one value. Values are accessed by index numbers, and you can pretty much think of this as like a variable that holds multiple values, or a variable that holds a list of values. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but that's a good way of thinking about it. So here I created nothing new. This is just a simple program. I have a string named game consoles and I have that set equal to PlayStation. And then I have a cout statement that prints out game consoles. So this program will simply just print out PlayStation. There we go. But what if we can change this into an array? So in order to do that, we go over to where we have game consoles and we add a set of square brackets, and then we put a set of curly brackets over the string. If I can get this, come on. There we go. And there we go. This is an array. It only has one value in it right now, but this is basically it. The same way you declare a variable, you just do data type followed by whatever name you want, a pair of square brackets, and then set it equal to a bunch of values that are enclosed in curly brackets. And if we were to run this code, it would do the same exact thing. Wait, what the Okay, so we're not exactly printing the string PlayStation. That's only just inside of our array called game consoles. Whenever we do cout on an array, we are only printing the memory address, which is basically like the address of a house. Think of this like this. The White House address is 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, but the name of the house is White House. That's kind of like what we have here. This is like our 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, but PlayStation is the White House. If we want to actually print PlayStation, we have to follow this up with a set of square brackets and then put index 0, because computers start with 0 and this is the 0th index of the array. If I had another value in here, and I'll just name this Xbox, and I wanted to print out Xbox, I would have cout game consoles at index 1, because this is the 0 index and this is the 1 index. And I print this, and we get Xbox. So we no longer get the memory address. Now we get the actual value. And if we want to print out PlayStation, well, then we just set this equal to 0. And then now we have PlayStation. I'm going to add another value to this. I'm going to separate it by a comma because that's the syntax for it. And then put in double quotes, GameCube. Now let's say we wanted to print out PlayStation, Xbox, and GameCube. Well, we would need 3 cout statements. And then we have it at index 1 for Xbox and then index 2 for GameCube. Now let's run our code and it should print out all 3. Xbox, GameCube, PlayStation. We should probably put some inlines here. All right, so let's run this code and we should get all 3. PlayStation, Xbox, GameCube. Now we can also reassign an element within inside of an array. So let's say instead of PlayStation, I'm a huge Sega fan and I want to display the Sega Dreamcast. I would do string game consoles at index 0 because that's where PlayStation is. And we set it equal to, instead of PlayStation, we'll do Dreamcast. And then if we print this out again or run this code, it will be Dreamcast, Xbox, GameCube. What's the problem here? Conflicting declaration. Ah, sorry. I declared it. I didn't assign it. That's my fault. It's 10 p.m. I'm tired. And now this should run. Dreamcast, Xbox, GameCube. Well, since I just made that mistake, it's actually a perfect time to talk about how arrays can only contain the same data type. So this is a string array. I can't add in an integer here, or else I'll get a error. Well, in this case, my compiler won't tell me if there's any errors, but you can see here it says no suitable constructor exists, and it's just saying a bunch of other crap that's telling me that, hey, look, you can't put a 1 in here, you can't put an integer in here, only strings allowed. So yeah, don't try to make an array filled with strings and numbers and doubles and stuff like that. Always stick to the same data type. So in some cases, you might not know exactly what you want to put inside of your array, and that's fine. You can declare it here and then assign values to it later. So in this case, we already have Dreamcast at index 0, so let's add a couple more. Do game consoles at index 1 and set that equal to PlayStation, and so on. So you see here the compiler is still not kind of satisfied. That's because arrays are static data structures. And what that means is that we have to give a size of the array before we can run our program. So in this case, we have 3 elements that we want to assign. So let's make space for 3 spaces inside of our array. And this should work. Dreamcast, PlayStation, Xbox. So as you see here, we declared our array, game consoles, and then gave it 3 empty spaces. And then later on in our program, we assigned 0 to Dreamcast, 1 to PlayStation, 2 to Xbox, and then we printed out our array. Now let's say for an example, we have an array of 100 elements. And if you want to print out the entire array, you would have to do 100 cout statements. But we're programmers. We don't do things the hard way. We try to take shortcuts and we find the laziest way to do something. So if you ever want to print out an entire array, you have to iterate over it. So I'll come back to you guys with an integer array that is super large, and then I'll show you guys how to print all of it. All right, would you look at that? We have an array of 100 integers. So if we wanted to print out this array using the tools at our disposal prior to this video, we'd have to have 100 cout statements. But what we can actually do is create a for loop to iterate every element and then just print it out one by one. And it'll be a lot faster and a lot less code. So let's create a for loop. And then for int I, that equal to 0. I less than 100 because that's the size of our array here. Increment by 1. And then cout, not the array, but the array at index I. Because I is going to start at 0, which in this case is 23, and then keep looping, keep looping, keep looping, keep looping until we get to 100, which is 77. So we're going to cout the numbers that is in the array. You can tell it's late because I'm forgetting simple things like the arrows here. Okay, so this would iterate over the array and print it out. And yeah, I think it glitched out though. We have a lot of stuff here. Or maybe we didn't have 100 integers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 71, 72, 73. Okay, so we don't exactly have 100 integers here. I'm not gonna lie, I use ChatGPT to give me like 100 random numbers, but maybe I deleted some in the process or I didn't wait for it to finish generating. But the thing is still the same. Like, this just prints a bunch of characters in the array, or elements rather. Let's just run this a little bit better this time so you can visualize it. There we go. But we got a couple empty spaces here. But yeah, that's arrays. If you want to print an entire array, use a for loop. If you want to declare an array, you do the data type, name, square brackets, and you can either list it or you can assign it the elements later.